What if I told you that every government, every religious institution, and every academic authority has been deliberately hiding the most powerful source of knowledge humanity has ever known? The Akashic Records aren't just mystical folklore. They're a threat to the very foundations of control. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why they don't want you to access them. You've probably heard the Akashic Records dismissed as New Age fantasy or ancient superstition. But here's what they don't want you to know. The CIA has studied them through classified projects. Religious leaders warn you away, not because they're fake, but because they're real. And academia, they won't even touch the subject. The question isn't whether the records exist. The question is, why are they so afraid of what you might find? The government connection. Let's start with something concrete. Project Stargate. From 1978 to 1995, the CIA spent over $20 million studying remote viewing and psychic phenomena. They weren't just looking for enemy spies. They were trying to access information beyond the physical realm. Information that exists outside of time and space. Why would intelligence agencies care about consciousness research unless there was something real to hide? The Stanford Research Institute, working directly with the CIA, documented cases where remote viewers accessed historical events they had no way of knowing, events that weren't in any textbook or database. But here's the kicker. When these programs were officially shut down, they claimed the results were inconclusive, yet declassified documents show success rates far above statistical chance. They didn't shut it down because it didn't work. They shut it down because it worked too well. The religious gatekeepers. Now let's talk about religion. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they all have one thing in common when it comes to the Akashic Records. Don't go there. It's dangerous. It's demonic deception. But ask yourself this: why such strong warnings if it's all just fantasy? If the records were truly meaningless, wouldn't religious authorities simply ignore them? The truth is, spiritual gatekeepers want to control your access to knowledge. They've built entire institutions on being the middleman between you and divine truth. What happens to their authority if you can access universal knowledge directly? Look at the Gnostics, early Christians who believed in direct spiritual experience. What happened to them? They were systematically hunted down and eliminated by the Orthodox Church. Why? Because they threatened the control structure. The Akashic Records represent the same threat today: direct access to truth, no intermediaries, no institutions, no control. The academic suppression. Now let's examine academia. Universities are supposed to be centers of learning, right? Places where we explore the unknown. Yet consciousness research is systematically underfunded and marginalized. Scientists who study psychic phenomena find their careers destroyed. Their research is dismissed without proper investigation. Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, gave over 14,000 documented readings while in trance states. He diagnosed illnesses he'd never studied, spoke languages he'd never learned, and described historical events that weren't discovered by archaeologists until decades later. The academic response? Ignore it. Pretend it doesn't exist. Because if they acknowledged it, they'd have to rewrite everything we think we know about consciousness, reality, and human potential. The control mechanism. Here's what they really don't want you to understand. Limiting your consciousness is the ultimate control tool. Think about it. If you could access the Akashic Records, if you could see the true history of humanity, understand the real nature of reality, perceive the connections between all things, how could anyone control you? You'd see through the lies, you'd understand the manipulation, you'd recognize the artificial limitations they've placed on human potential. But here's the dangerous part. Not everything that claims to be the Akashic Records actually is. There's a difference between genuinely accessing universal consciousness and being fed manipulated information by entities that want to keep you confused and distracted. The real records don't tell you what to think. They show you how to think. They don't give you beliefs. They give you the tools to discover truth for yourself, the deeper truth. So why are they really hiding this from you? Because an awakened mind can't be controlled. A consciousness that knows its true nature can't be manipulated by fear, scarcity, or false authority. The Akashic Records aren't just a library of information. They're a mirror that shows you who you really are. And that terrifies the systems built on keeping you small, dependent, and unconscious. They don't want you to know that consciousness is fundamental to reality. They don't want you to understand that you're not just a biological machine responding to stimuli. They don't want you to realize that you have access to knowledge that transcends their carefully constructed narratives. The question isn't whether you believe in the Akashic Records. The question is whether you're willing to explore the possibility that everything you've been told about consciousness, reality, and human potential might be wrong. If this opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, subscribe for more truths they don't want you to discover. And tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced knowledge that seemed to come from beyond your normal awareness? Have you ever felt like there was more to reality than what we're taught?